to the King's community near and far listening into this webinar put on by the King's Alumni Office. Today's webinar, How to Grow Your Professional Network, is part of a larger series of how-to events and webinars specifically created for students and alumni who are in the early stages of developing their careers. Be sure to follow the Alumni Office on social media at KCL Alumni and look out for future how-to events on our monthly e-news and on our website. In today's webinars, our panelists will discuss how to make the most of our platforms and opportunities, such as LinkedIn, mentoring and networking events, to expand your professional network and improve your career prospects. So now, without further ado, I'll let our speakers introduce themselves. Verena, shall we start with you?
So I've graduated from KCL in 2012 in philosophy. After that, I got my first job in international events. After that, I set up my first company. So I was buying, refurbishing and selling properties across the UK. Very much loved it. Went really well for a couple of years, then it went less well for a number of reasons. After that, I started working in headhunting for a firm and found my dream career. I absolutely love it. But because I sort of love the entrepreneurial side of things, I now decided to set my own company. So I've just done that. It's called People Consulting, and it's an international headhunting firm.
I'll follow up here. So my name is David Martinelli. I graduated from King's all the way back in 1991. I did a dual degree in languages and mathematics. I subsequently joined the banking community. I started off at a company called Smith Barney in London. I did a good job, and I got transferred to New York in the late 90s. My company then merged with Salomon Brothers, which is very interesting, very storied company. That then merged with Citigroup. I was there for a total of about 15 years. Always in a trading banking capacity, so trade mortgage bonds. I run a big outfit over here. It's one of the pinnacles of the American business environment, trading securities like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. And then I left in 2009 after the financial crisis to start at Morgan Stanley, doing a similar kind of role, again, trading both fixed income, interest rate products, and mortgage bonds. So been here in New York City about 22 years. I love America. It's a great place. It's treated me very well. I've been very involved with the King's community ever since. I'm a huge believer in giving back. I had a great time at King's. I learned a lot. I had a lot of good relationships. And subsequently, I became sort of president of the King's Alumni Committee over here in New York City. We basically brand King's as much as we can. A lot of social and professional events. And we help about 1,600 alumni, excuse me, in the tri-state area that are settled here in America and New York. I'm very passionate about giving back. I'm mentoring and charitable endeavors. I'm part of a bunch of boards, all to do with UK institutions. And I help other UK alumni groups through, again, meetups and other events. So this is very dear to my heart.
Thank you, David. Hi, folks. My name's John Addison. I, like David, graduated from King's in the early 90s with a geography degree. Went on with that degree to start a career in the technology industry, originally with a consultancy firm called Capgemini. Then realized I was much better at selling stuff than actually delivering stuff. So I went through various technology firms in a sales capacity, Oracle, and then I moved into the financial services sector with a specialist vendor called Mysis. I've ended up working for LinkedIn, and I lead the UK sales organization here in LinkedIn. Delighted to be part of a company that's striving to create economic opportunity for every single member of the global workforce. And LinkedIn is the world's largest professional network. We have over 600 million members on LinkedIn, connecting every single day for many reasons, but predominantly, first and foremost, so that they can find work. Which is a very worthy cause. It's a mission I fully believe in, and we have over 60 million students on our platform, considering every single day how to leverage the network that LinkedIn offers in order that they find their first and next career move as they move into a professional life. So delighted to be able to come and share some thinking in and around that with everybody today.
Fantastic. Well, let's jump right in and hear each of your top tips about how to grow your professional network.
I believe I'm starting here. So, you know, I like the adage of it's not what you know, but who you know. A lot of this business nowadays, you know, talking from experience, it's really much of a personal touch. I think it starts with really building your own personal brand. I'm a huge believer in this. I love LinkedIn. I'm probably one of the biggest users of LinkedIn. But I think building your brand, start early. You know, you can start at university, whether it's student or alumni. Expand your network of connections. Start with the King's community. This is going to be your launch pad to a lot of success going forward. Meet and connect with as many folk as you can at King's. You share a commonality. You know, you go to King's, you're both, you know, all in the same boat. It's a great opportunity to share ideas, you know, connect with each other and grow with each other. You know, meet fellow students, join clubs, societies, anyone that you can possibly meet at King's, and also make sure you take advantage of all the available resources at King's. I think they've done a phenomenal job lately with the career service. The alumni relations team have just broken out a new platform called the King's Connect. You can tap into current King's students and worldwide alumni, such as myself, stay abreast of King's activities, events, news, benefits, and services, create or join groups, start conversations, sign up for mentoring. Mentoring is really important. Whether you become a mentor or a mentee, it's going to be crucial going forward. Surround yourself with people that you admire, that you respect, that will take an interest in your prospective career, and do the same for others that you believe that you can help in any kind of way. It's good to give it back and pay it forward. It's really going to help you a lot. And whether it's you know, trying to find a job or boosting your career or looking for something different, there's an infinite amount of opportunities to meet up with a lot of people. I think one of the main benefits of being at King's or having got to King's is the access to a huge, vast, worldwide community of alumni. We take pride in helping each other. We're all on this webinar because we want to help each other as much as we possibly can. And I think, you know, you really feel like a sense of wanting to give back from that perspective. That's my number one tip. Very quickly, I think, you know, obviously social media is a phenomenal launchpad to use for connecting and henceforth, but I think personal touch more than anything, you know, human connection, meeting up with people. You live in London, you live in New York City, you can meet a ton of people. There's a ton of events that you can attend. We're tech and industry leaders, both in London and New York. The opportunity is vast, whether you know what you want to do or whether you want to find something that will resonate with you. Just go to a lot of events, meet a lot of people, and somewhere along the line, something's going to tick, whether it's a connection, an introduction, a prospect, whatever it is. There's going to be an infinite amount of opportunities for you to develop yourself and develop your career going forward. And then number three, going back to the mentorship thing, I think mentoring is a phenomenal thing. Find, grow your mentor community, follow people that you admire, and at the same time, lead by example. So, you know, if you can share your expertise, like we're doing here, this is a great opportunity to give back in that capacity as well. So those are probably my 3 tips.
Okay, thanks, David. So, yeah, I mean, I'm obviously going to be coming at this from a social media angle, right? So no apologies there. The question here is about growing your network. And I think on a professional level, I would advocate that LinkedIn's a great place to start with that, because unlike other social platforms, we're very much in and around your professional and work life and how you're developing that rather than your personal life. So I just clearly want to make that distinction. For us, it's very important that people understand that if you're going to use a social platform to develop your professional life, LinkedIn being an example, then the way that you curate and manage your profile is incredibly important, because starting there, that's the first thing that people see, right? That's their window into your professional self. So there are some like really clear tips that you need to consider as you build out a member profile on LinkedIn. Firstly, it's got to have, you know, your education, right? It's important that you keep that up to date and that it's relevant. It's got to have an up-to-date photo. I can't highlight how important that is. And please, when you think about your photo on your LinkedIn profile, think about how it should project how you want to show up at work. So think about it as you in the workplace rather than you at the weekend. Whatever that might be, right? That might be very different depending on what type of work you're interested in, but consider it in that light. And if you have an up-to-date photo, you're 21% more likely to get views on LinkedIn than if you don't. So it's really important. Secondly, when you're thinking about how you document your work experience, I really want you to think out of the box here, because it might just be that you're thinking about it in terms of the kind of traditional work experience that you might have. But I'm suggesting think broader, right? Think about internships, think about summer jobs, think about stuff you may have done on a really temporary basis, but think what's interesting in there from a career development and career interest perspective. So tell stories, tell things that, talk about things that you learned about, talk about things that you really took away that were valuable and are driving your interest in the first steps that you're taking to seek out your first job in your professional life. Volunteering is also hugely important. There doesn't necessarily have to be a salary associated with your work for it to be interesting to future employers. And lastly, what I'd say is there's a section in LinkedIn where you can document the skills that you have. So really take a step back and think about the work you've done, voluntary or paid, and then think about the skills that you developed and the skills that you demonstrated during that. And there's a section on LinkedIn where you can actually highlight those skills relevant to that work. And when people who are in employment are searching for candidates, they're not only searching on the description that you have of yourself, the description you have of your work, they're also searching for skills. And the predominant nature of those skills is that actually the soft skills that you talk about are as if not more so important than the hard or technical skills that you have. So really think about what you've learned. Secondly, I talk about the specific capability that we have on LinkedIn for alumni networks. So there is an alumni area on LinkedIn's platform where you can reach out to people who went to your Institute of Higher Education, who read the courses that you're reading, and who've gone on to take career steps and are in professional work. This tool allows you to understand where they've gone, what work they're doing, what functions they're in, the types of careers they're built, so that you can start to reach out to people who've been in higher education in the same way as you and start to build out your professional network, but from within your university. That's a really great way to build a professional network before you take that first step into work. And thirdly, my last tip is in and around just the power of referral and recommendation. 85% of workplace placements are done through recommendation or referral. So you need to understand that. And it's important that in the recommendation section on LinkedIn, you start to use your network to ask people to build out recommendations about yourself. That's a really nice overlap with the alumni capability, because if you build that network, who people know you from higher education, they've gone into work, then they can start to talk about you in your context as a student and in your desires of where you want to go in your career. So it's a great place to start.
Oh, Verena, I don't think we can hear you.
Is it better now?
Yes, perfect.
So thank you very much for these tips. So what I'll be talking about is mainly face-to-face networking, because of course LinkedIn is massively important, and of course in my career as a headhunter, and I really understand it, because that's how we actually then find graduates or people looking for work. However, if you really want to grow your network in a meaningful way, I think I would sort of recommend taking the quality over quantity approach. So whatever connections you build, make sure they are meaningful. And in order to achieve that, I think it's tremendously important to really follow your passion and follow your interests in whatever you decide with your career, follow your heart in that. Because I think people that you meet or people you network with, they can really feel that. And I think if you've got that genuine passion for it, it shows. And you'll ultimately be more successful. You'll have more fun with it, and you'll be more authentic. Now, of course, we live in a at a time where a lot of communication sort of happens via apps and social networks. But then I think there's nothing more powerful than meeting people face to face. So I think there's lots and lots of career events. I think career fairs are amazing for students to attend. And you can even just, show up at companies, show that you're interested. It's kind of how I got every job that I got, was actually showing up and talking to people there. Because, well, when I graduated, it was towards the end of the recession. It's a different time now, that the job market's kind of changed. But if you're sort of up against maybe 300 other people for one position, then I think it's really, really important to have these really quality contacts within your network. And what I would also say is that when you network, don't just think about yourself and how you can advance. Put yourself in the shoes of the other person. Think about what they are interested in, and really listen to them. show them a genuine interest, and people will like you more and they'll remember you more.
Great, thank you. So I think hopefully we all feel a bit more confident about how to grow our network now, but that's only half the battle. The next step is making use of the network once you have it. So perhaps we could hear some of your top tips about how to make the best use of your network.
Thanks a lot. I'll start here. So actually, I'll just add on Verena's point about, when you're writing up about your experiences and writing up in your summary, for example, on your LinkedIn profile about what it is that you're thinking that you want to do in the future. I absolutely agree that how you communicate that in a passionate, human way that is differentiated, right, and is really about your own professional identity and desires, that's going to be much more authentic, and it's going to be much more likely that if you're projecting your authentic self, that it's going to feel real to people who are looking at it. I'd equally say that you've got to be thoughtful about the words you use, actually. Words really count. You only get a limited number of words to use on social media. And actually, they're the things that come up when recruiters do searches. So don't waste words. I actually put a lot of thought into the words that are going to stand out as you as authentic, but also as you in the way that you want to be sought out and considered when people are looking at you as somebody that they're interested in hiring as a candidate. So they're just good thoughts. I really like what I heard about mentoring from David, and I couldn't agree more with this. Like, this is so highly prevalent and desired that we've actually built features into our platform specifically for mentorship. So there is a career advice feature on LinkedIn that allows you to tap your network for help. And you can go in using this feature and find people in your network who've actually opened themselves up as being open to be considered as mentors themselves. So if you're interested in being a mentee to a mentor via your professional network, there's actually the capability on LinkedIn to go and seek out people in that way. We think that's a fantastic way to build connective tissue between people who want to give knowledge, give advice, and people who may be seeking it out to go locate it from within their networks. And also consider that person carefully, right? And then the industry that you want to consider going into, they demonstrated the route to get where they've got to that you're seeing as realistic and something you could consider yourselves going through. Or in fact, if they got something that's completely different and totally way away from where you are right now, but something you really think you can learn from. So I always think that that's something to consider deeply in terms of reaching out to those people, and the way that you approach them needs to be thoughtful too. So make it sound interesting, make it sound appealing, and make them think that they're going to get something out of that relationship themselves. So that's about career advice and mentorship. The other thing that I like to talk about a lot with people sizing up companies, probably at any point in their career, but it's no more important than when it's your first, is like, I look back on my career and think about the good decisions I've made about where I go work, and I think about the bad decisions I've made about where I go work. And I think about the bad ones, it's usually because I've reached and extended myself, probably beguiled by maybe salary or the job title or the location, without really taking a step back and being incredibly thoughtful about the culture values of the company in question. And when I was looking for my first job, I tell this story about the first job I got out of King's, and I went on the milk round. That was when you could still get jobs in the milk round. I hope that's still the case. But I remember making a bunch of decisions about the sorts of jobs I wanted to apply for on the milk round that could be best described as scattergun, right? I've actually told this story at King's before in alumni sessions. And in those days, the internet was not the place you went to. At best, you could kind of download an annual report, right? And it was a reasonably dry set of statistics and management speak about the performance of that company. You may get something off the internet that's very corporate, governance focused. And I found it incredibly hard to actually assess what it's like to work in a company at all, from a culture, from an experience point of view. And that is not the case now, right? And if I'm honest, I had 3 offers in the milk round, and I chose the wrong company because I think I was beguiled by the brand involved. And actually, I didn't really consider at all what it was like for an individual to work there. And it wasn't for me. It's for a lot of people, but for me, it was the wrong choice. And so what I'm saying is, when you consider the sort of company you want to reach out and be thought about for, really try and derive anything you can in the public domain about what it's like to experience working there. And you can do that very easily through social platforms, not only by considering the information that's on social platforms and on the internet about that company, about their purpose, about their culture. And companies are far better now at explaining that story, but also through connecting with people who work at that company, in the functions that you may want to work in, who are new starters in that company that obviously you can see by their tenure in role. And you can build your connective tissue with people who work in that company and really start to probe, what's it feel like working there? And that way you can get a real personal narrative about the experience of being an employee. And I think that's really useful in the preparation that you have when you show up if you get interviews, because it shows that you've done the research, it shows you really care about being comfortable and happy in work, and it shows that your personal beliefs are in line with the corporate beliefs in question in that company. And I think for me, that's a great way to appear authentic, it's a great way to appear engaged, and it's a great way to be successful through a recruitment process. There are other little things you can do on our platform. Actually, you have the ability on our platform to register that you are an open candidate. There's an open candidate feature which you can choose to put on or off, so that recruiters who may be looking at the fact that you're showing an interest in their company, following their company, have a network in it, can actually see that you're open for interest when they're considering first roles. So I would always say to job seekers that you need to be aware that feature's there and to flag it, because it's one of the first things recruiters are going to look for. And I suppose the last but more general point that I'd use about engagement on our platform is it's a two-way street, right? And especially if you're following a company and you're getting engaged in the network of people that work there or are interested in it, the amount of activity and engagement that you have on the platform in that context is really going to help you. So be brave, post, make comment, like professionally relevant content, like the things that interest you about that company or about that role or about anything that's professionally relevant. Give an opinion, right? But give it in a way that's conscientious, that people not only are going to read it, but people are going to make judgments about what you've said. That can be a great thing, right? Especially when what you say is meaningful and makes you seem engaged. But just sitting back and waiting for things to happen to you is not really like the approach we'd suggest. You get out of a social platform what you put into it. So I would say the way that you post, the way you comment, the way you like, the way you share is going to show up in terms of how well you're engaged. So I'd recommend that being top of mind. Over to Verena, I think. Next.
Yes. I think we're having trouble hearing you again, Verena.
Okay, is that better?
Yes. Yeah.
I put the microphone in the loudest setting, but then I'm not very good with text, so it's probably, I just try to speak up and hope everyone can hear me. So my top tip on how to use your professional network once you've grown is to dare to ask people for things that you're wanting to do, or ask for help. My advice would be to be super proactive and not be passive, because you could have thousands of connections, but if you're not engaged with them or interacting with them, it's not very helpful. Now I know it can be super intimidating, but I think on the whole, people in your network will, they will be willing to help you. They will want to help you. So I think the first step is kind of knowing for you to know what you really want in your professional career. I think that's the number one thing. So probably spend enough time on that. And once you kind of know what you really want, then don't be shy to go for it. Of course, you can sort of look at job offers, you can see what's out there, but at the same time, you could just be like, I really want to work for this company. I think that's an amazing organization. That's my dream. And you can find ways to get there through the network. You can connect with people who work there. You can go through headhunters, but I think the key is to regularly follow up with your connections. And it sort of don't necessarily wait for them to reach out to you. Of course, I suppose it's a more comfortable approach, right? You can sort of wait for things to happen to you, but then it might not be the right thing for you. So I advise you to think about what you really want from your heart, and then kind of go from there. And it's miraculous how it will happen if you kind of want it enough and you follow up on it and you take action. I think that's the key. Taking steps and taking action. And at the same time, I would recommend to give back. You know, that's obviously something that David had mentioned before, but I think that's a very, very good point. You know, do things for others without thinking about yourself. Whenever you can help somebody, help them. If you can connect somebody with somebody else, that lends them the dream job. If you can give somebody information about a career, you know, even if you don't, you know, if it doesn't benefit you in that moment, always help people to achieve their goals, to achieve their dreams, and people will do the same for you.
Great, my turn. Touching on a little bit of everything, to be honest. I think the fun part of having so many connections and such a big network is how you manage it proactively. And I think a lot of it is basically keep being active and proactive about it. Don't wait. A lot of people, you know, have a misconception that you only reach to your connections when you need a job or when you need something, or just keep on going, you know, meeting up with people, staying in touch, letting people know how you're getting on, you know, just make it in a way that it's not intrusive. You know, you're part of the you know, you're basically relaying a little bit about what's going on in your life, looking for opportunities, and life's all about opportunities. This digital age of being able to do so many more things than, you know, John and I had back in the day when there was no internet or digital at all. I think it's fascinating. I think being proactive, whether it's giving advice, whether it's collaborating, whether it's mentorship, build yourself a good reputation. I love John's point about being visible. Visible is really important. You know, make sure that if you have an opinion, say it. You know, put it on a chat. If you have something that you want to say, people are going to look at that and go, hey, I like what this person's saying. This should be someone that I should consider going forward. That's always a great thing. So proactivity is always a great thing. You know, volunteer your time, and also mutuality. By mutuality, I mean, it's not just about, you know, getting something. It's about also, you know, getting something back. And that can be a referral. You know, it can be, oh, I'm seeing that this person's looking for an opportunity in blah. I know someone that works in human resources in that particular company. Let me make an introduction. You know, be proactive about referring and be proactive about seeking at the same time. I do love the mentorship thing. I think that's a phenomenal one. It's something that's going to grow with you forever. Having a set of people that can advise you. And advice is whether you're starting a new job or starting a new career or thinking about something new or thinking about a new investment or thinking about something totally, you know, different. Cryptocurrencies, you know, cannabis, you know, all that kind of stuff. You know, if you have an opinion about something, you know, share it. And you're going to find that a lot of people will reciprocate, and you're going to build even more of a network that way. Also invest in yourself. That's the most important thing. You know, similar to the point about, you know, building your profile. More and more people are looking, like I said, at ways of hiring people through different ways, whether it's through headhunting or whether it's through social media. The more interesting you can make yourself, the better. We interview a ton of people over here at Morgan Stanley, and you're always looking for that person that has a little bit of an edge. And, you know, everyone's going to be very smart. Everyone's going to go to good universities, have a great degree, do very similar kind of things. If you have all this amazing arsenal of things that you did, volunteering, whether you give back, whether you do some things that may resonate with me, you know, I'm going to sit next to you for 15 hours a day, and you have a certain skill set that I enjoy, you know, talking to you about, or something like that. The more interesting you can make yourself, the better. And in the skill section of LinkedIn, I guess, it's a little bit about, you know, make sure that you put everything down. You know, that could resonate with someone that's looking for something. And if it's very even between two different individuals, that could be the swaying vote in terms of maybe hiring someone from that capacity. I also love playing the game of who do you know on LinkedIn. You know, when you connect with someone, who do you know? How do you know that person? Oh, that's interesting. And that can be an opener for more dialogue going forward, and that can create an opportunity as well. So there's a lot of things about managing the process. You know, a lot of it is basically, you know, us getting back and helping out for students and for alumni, you know, especially building a career. You want to know as many things as possible. The opportunity to move around and do different things and be able to have that opportunity is phenomenal, much better than we had 10, 15, 20 years ago. And I think, you know, social media is both good and bad from that perspective, that it can be inundating with the amount of information they can get. But at the same time, it's kind of exciting to know that this new frontier is being open all the time, and there's maybe new paths that you might be much more passionate about. So I'm a huge believer in maintaining that network, building it, and starting to communicate with people that you enjoy, that you have an affinity towards, and that's something that you really enjoy, you know, doing, you know, going forward. part of it also, like, as I mentioned a little bit about networking leads to connections, leads to maybe an opportunity to give back eventually. I think, one thing that I'm passionate about in the giving back is the fact that I feel very connected to Kings. I feel that I'm in a position to be able to help out in more ways than just mentoring and being an ambassador. So a couple of us over here in New York started a internship program. Michael Abbott and myself pioneering a US summer internship program, fully funded by ourselves, to basically get alumni to come to New York City on a summer internship for 10 weeks, fully paid by ourselves, to basically experience what it's like to work in a different country, in a different place, and in a different field. So that's something that hopefully, I would like to instill that, the whole thing about, building a career and then at some point giving back is huge. And I think, being part of a college that you feel an affinity towards, being part of a community is huge. And I think that all builds into the whole networking and connections thing. And at some point, you really want to give back and you feel good about yourself. Selfishly, you feel good about yourself and you're helping others at the same time. So I think a combination of all these different aspects, it makes sure to continue to build that networking and connectivity as much as possible.
Great, thank you all. Those are all really useful tips. So I think we're just going to go into some questions now. So some of the audience have submitted some questions, and I'm just going to pick some of the most popular. So I think a lot of people were asking about what's the best way to go about introducing yourself, and then also maybe once you've made a connection, how to take that connection offline. How should you invite someone to coffee? At what point in the relationship is that acceptable?
I'd say just ask and avoid people say no, but maybe they say yes.
Yeah, what I'd say here is that you've got to recognize that these social networks, and they're just channels, right? So they're just mechanisms to allow you to make an introduction. Once you've identified who it is that you might be interested in making an introduction to, the actual substance of that introduction is what you're going to say. And like the substance of what you're going to say is like why you're going to say it. So there is no alternative, right, for finding a relevant voice that's based on experiences that are meaningful to the audience. So that's what I think about considering your experience in a way that allows you to effectively market it, right? And seeking out work experience, seeking out stories to tell, like it starts there. There's no substitute for that. And you're not going to find substitutes for that on LinkedIn, right? LinkedIn is just a way of amplifying like the interest of what you've done to somebody who's a potential employer in the future and an advocate of yours. So I think you've got to really think about the sort of experiences you can get, why they're interesting to people, and how you brand them to people so that you get their attention. And that's, I think, the piece that really takes some thinking about, because once you've got their attention, then it's going to be down to that first interaction. And if what you've got is interesting to say, if it grabs their attention, it hits them between the eyes and they respond and they connect with you and they enter into a dialogue with you, whether it's by email, whether it's by phone, whether it's on a VC or whether it's over a coffee, that's then up to you and how you tell your stories and how you end up being appealing to them for a downstream conversation. So there's no substitute for that. And it's important that you consider that and you realize just how important that initial approach is going to be, because like get feedback about it, like write something, share it, put it into your network. If it doesn't work, get feedback. Why? Get course correction. Always work on that. Always work on the nature of that first approach, because it's often the thing that is going to define potentially the rest of your career, right? So it takes a lot of thought.
I do like that, actually. I think the American mentality of not taking no, but in a good way. You can't be very in your face about something. If you have Kings in common, maybe similar degree, maybe you're looking to get into banking or into social media, into recruiting, you can definitely link up with certain people in a good way. Don't straight away ask for a job. Don't straight away ask for something. It's more like we seem to have a lot of connections or we have a lot of interest in alike. I'd love to connect with you. At some point in the future, develop that relationship. As you move on, you post a couple of things, you like a couple of things, you maybe throw a couple of things. At some point, that relationship becomes a little bit stronger, and every single day it gets a little bit stronger, and you keep connecting that way. I think a lot of it basically is about, you're going to learn something new all the time. By meeting someone you learn something new. By by the way you link with someone, you're going to learn something new. You know, you're trying to basically get yourself to the best way you possibly can to make sure you have as big an impact as you possibly can. There's a lot of opportunities. You don't want to waste too many too quickly. Make sure you do it in a way that is both, you know, rational and efficient. But I think the other things, you know, referrals are very important, like we talked about before. If you know someone and that person can recommend you, that says a lot straight away. Over here in recruiting at Morgan Stanley, a lot of times, you know, we'll have someone who goes, hey, I have this one friend who's really keen in banking and everything. Could he come and sit with you for like a day? It's like, absolutely. If you're a friend of a friend, that could be an end to potentially circumventing, you know, a much more 5,000 people interview process, something like that could happen going forward. So referrals, knowing people, and using those referrals and connections in a good way can definitely yield a lot of benefits. So take no for an answer, but do it in a good way, and just keep trying and trying and trying. You know, there's you know, there's nothing wrong with doing that on an ongoing basis, and good things will happen eventually.
Great, thank you so much for that. I think a lot of people are also asking, I assume this is because of how international our alumni community is. A lot of people are asking about how to grow an effective network online between people in different countries. And once you've got that network that's quite international, how do you sustain it when you aren't necessarily able to meet up with those people?
Being in New York, I guess, you know, I go back and forth between London and New York quite often. It's a question. If it's more because you're interested in maybe working in that country at some point in the future, that's great. You know, a lot of it that we've tried to do over here from a King's perspective in New York is to create a community aspect. And I think a lot of being part of a college, it's not just you get a degree and you finish college and you try and get a job and everything. It's more like, what are the resources that you have once you leave college? You know, is there a group of people that can help you? Alumni engagement, is there like a marketing team? Is there like, you know, all these different things. So we've created over here a bit of a solid base, a community aspect where people can, you know, get together socially, professionally. We'll do speaker series. We'll join up with other universities, and we'll do a bunch of different things to try and help and make sure that you do know that there's opportunities away from college, that you're not going to guarantee you a job. That's never going to happen, but we can hopefully steer you the right way and do things like that. So from an international perspective, maybe link up with people that you're interested with. You know, like I think as you develop a field, you can definitely reach out to people in different countries that may have an affinity to that potential field. If you're thinking about potentially working in Asia or North America, something like that, start slowly reaching out to people that could be influential from that perspective. So again, similar kind of things, keep growing it, keep reaching out to people. It's a global community. We're here to help out. Everyone at King's takes pride in having a King's. You know, we want to give back. We want to help. We can't guarantee you a job, but we'll do our utmost to make sure we steer you in the right way and give you as much advice as we possibly can.
Great. Actually, we've got this question I think is probably best answered by John, or maybe David and Verena too, because of your experience with LinkedIn. But someone was asking about, when is it appropriate to ask colleagues for recommendation, or to recommend you for things on LinkedIn? At what point, how long should you have been working with them before that's okay?
Yeah, I don't think there's any real prescriptive answer to that. I think if you've built a relationship with someone, that person feels they can credibly testify to the goodwill they feel towards you, the respect they have for your work, the respect that we have as an individual, then it's never too early to write a recommendation. So whether it's 8 months or 8 years, right? I think the ones that they kind of, I feel are reasonably obvious, where the person's written the recommendation and sent the recommendation to somebody to recommend for them, right? I feel that it's got to be authentic. So I think it's definitely worth a conversation if it's a colleague. If they've given you good feedback, then one great way to respond to receiving good feedback is say, okay, that's great to hear. Is there any way that you'd like to share that on my profile so other people can hear your feedback? That's just a normal part of building a professional relationship, I think. And I think it's a perfectly reasonable thing to ask someone for if they're giving you good feedback. So yeah, that's the approach I take.
Great. And then actually, we had a few people ask, what are the biggest mistakes you can make regarding networking and network building? And are there any kind of don'ts that people should avoid doing?
There are plenty of don'ts on LinkedIn. Yeah, I think I said earlier, this is something that relates to your professional profile and your career. And the thing about the internet is once it's up there, it stays there. So do not like make the mistake of making the mistake, right? Because if you post something, if you say something, if you're doing it in the wrong state of mind, and you're doing it in a state where you're going to regret it, it's out there, right? And it's there forever. So be very thoughtful about what you're doing. Don't be scared of what you're doing, because like I don't want to put anybody off, but you know, equally, this isn't Facebook, right? And people, I would also suggest, if you're looking at your digital footprint in general, right, outside of just LinkedIn, you have to, as somebody in your career, consider that nowadays the first thing a recruiter is going to do is Google you, and they're not going to just look for you on LinkedIn. They're going to look for you on every platform, right? So even on platforms that aren't related to your professional network and how you're developing your career, be wary all of the time that people can find things on the internet and in the public domain by one click of a browser, and they're going to make judgments about you based on what they see. So I think the biggest mistake I see people make is making mistakes in general on social platforms and posting things that, you know, in the future, that they've not considered in the future would be considered by somebody who's going to be judging them professionally, right? And I would say that to anybody starting out, because I think people in my generation are probably a little bit more wary. And I've seen lots and lots of examples of people making mistakes, doing things that in the future they regret, and those things have come back to haunt them. So I really wouldn't want anybody on this call or at King's to be making similar mistakes.
That's kind of like the good thing and the scary thing about social media. It's a phenomenal outlet, you know, opportunity to meet people, see people. You see someone, you meet someone, you're going to Google them, and you're going to look at LinkedIn, and you're going to see who you know with each other, and it's a good starting point. But I think the biggest mistakes, like John alluded to, be careful about what you post, be careful about what you put out there. It's going to be there forever. People look at that, and whether it's a political view or whether it's something different like that, just be very careful about what you post and when you post it. It can be a very strong and powerful resource, social media, but at the same time, it can be very negative. We've had a few things over here in the States where, you know, someone had a social media profile, or, you know, something that came up from many years ago, and it doesn't go away. 15, 20 years later, doesn't matter if you've changed everything, it doesn't go away. So be very careful about how you use that. But at the same time, do not be afraid, like John said. It's a great opportunity. Do not, you know, don't wait till tomorrow. Do it now. If it feels right, connect with people. If it feels like the right thing, you've got something to offer, you've got something that you think is going to be mutually beneficial, go for it. There's nothing to lose at all. You don't want to waste that opportunity by being a little bit too shy about something. If it's something that's useful and it's going to be mutually benefit, go for it.
Oh, Verena, we can't hear you again.
All right.
Oh, there you go.
Be kind and professional to people within your network, because they will remember. So, I mean, one situation would be if people don't need anything from other people, they might, you know, they could be quite rude. But in the moment they need something, the other person will remember. So whatever you do, treat everybody with respect and how you would like to be treated, I think.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think that we just have time for one last question. And a few people have mentioned the best ways to kind of start building your personal brand. So on the more positive side of social media, we have this opportunity to really show who we are to the world and develop our personalities and show what stands out about us compared to other people. So how would you get started in that?
I would say the thing that's going to differentiate you is your personality and character. So, you know, like many people have an interest in technology or fixed income or investment banking or whatever you want to get into. But the thing that differentiates you is the whole version of you, that 360-degree version of you. So when you're thinking about your personal brand, it's called a personal brand for a reason. It needs to be very personal. So think about yourself. I think a good way to do this is ask people what they think about you, what they find memorable about you. When they think of you, what do they think about? What differentiates you from everybody else? And get that feedback, because sometimes it's difficult to figure out from your own mind's eye. And then once you've got that, like, document it, try and brand yourself, then share it back with the people that are close to you and get a sense of whether or not you think you're close to their impression of you. And then once that authentic description is there and vibrant and hard hitting and will stand out, just get it out there and see where it takes you.
I really agree with John. I think it's really important to be authentic, because I think, you know, if you're the best version of yourself, that's much better than trying to be somebody else or something you're not. So I think the whole thing about personal brand is that it really needs to reflect who you are. And again, it can be very scary because of fear of judgment and what other people might think. But I think ultimately that's, you know, that's the best way to build a brand, because I think people can always feel if something's not quite authentic. Somehow they get it.
And at the same time, I would think, you know, on a notepad, pros and cons. You know, what are you good at? What do you need to work on? And get feedback from people. A lot of the social media thing that you get is basically seeking advice. You know, I've got this. What do you think? You know, can I do better? Can I improve on something? So a lot of it is basically, what are you good at? And what's positive? And what can you work on? Can you work on presentation skills? Can you work on, do you have some gaps in your career history? Could you have volunteered? Could you do some other things? Could you, you know, just little things like that. Asking people what they think could be a good thing for you to do. That would be, that people like in digital are looking for, that people in social media are looking for, that people in banking are looking for. You know, certain traits abide by certain fields of work. And I think you can definitely give yourself a better chance of succeeding in certain fields by doing certain things that would definitely benefit you. And I think you get that from asking for advice, from reading a lot, from, you know, just going to a lot of meetup groups, you know, a lot of just, you know, or even on a networking basis, you know, reach out to people and say, you know, what do you think about these ideas? What do you think about these thoughts? What, you know, look at my resume. What could I do better? What do you think? You know, things like that. I do like the King's Connect. I'm going to, you know, sell it here again. I think King's Connect is a great opportunity. You can actually get into it through your LinkedIn profile. And I think, you know, I've used it in the older version, and I think I mentored about 20 people. And a lot of it, I take the time to really go through it and give ideas and thoughts about what you could read. You want to get into banking, you know, read this, look at this, say this. You know, start thinking about maybe this field of volunteering that would really be, you know, amenable to this sort of field or something like that. So there's definitely a lot of things you can do. So start now, look at yourself and look at what you can do better. Really start working on that profile and really start thinking about how you can get yourself an edge that is going to hopefully make a difference going forward. Great.
Well, I'd like to close this webinar now with a huge thank you to all our panelists who've kindly given their time today to share their wisdom and experience with us. I hope that you've all found this webinar helpful. Perhaps you've been inspired to create or update your LinkedIn profile, or to visit the Alumni website to see all our professional development opportunities, our mentoring programs, and King's Connect. If you are in London in April, please do come along to the mentoring meetup. And if you're further afield, look out for other networking opportunities near you. If you have any questions about anything that was shared today, don't hesitate to get in touch with the Alumni office by emailing us at forever@kcl.ac.uk or through our social media channels at KCL Alumni. And if you would like to share this webinar with your networks, don't forget to use #ForeverKings. So once again, a huge thank you to all our panelists and to everyone joining around the world today. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, guys. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.